Hello everyone, a very good morning and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. Welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So before we begin today's discussion, we have a very important announcement. On 20th January at 6 p.m., we shall be conducting a workshop to help you prepare for the upcoming UPSC Civil Services Examination. The session will be conducted by Anubhav sir and it will be exclusively available on the BYJU'S Exam Prep app. All you have to do is register by using the link provided in the description box below. And also we have started one-on-one counseling to help UPSC aspirants. So if you want to get in touch with our counselors, just register with the Google form for which the link is provided in the pinned comment below and also in the description box below. Just share your details and our counselors will get in touch with you. So with this, let's take a look at the topics we are going to discuss today. From the Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen 7 important articles, 3 articles for a detailed discussion from a mains point of view, and 4 small articles that are relevant for prelims. So let's take up these topics one by one and cover them comprehensively so that you don't have to go back and read the newspapers again. If you're liking the initiative, do support us by pressing the like button, share the video with other aspirants, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So let's begin with the discussion by looking at this important article from page number 15. In fact, this development is reported in the other pages of the Hindu as well. We have a related article on page number 1. There is another article on page number 12 and a main article on page number 15. I'm going to club all the 3 articles and we are going to have a comprehensive discussion on this important development which has been reported from the West Asia region. In the last few days, regional tensions in West Asia have shot up because of a particular incident. In West Asia, Iran, which is a major power, has carried out military strikes in few countries in the region. Iran has launched missile and drone attacks against few targets in Syria, in Iraq, and as well as against Pakistan. So these back-to-back military strikes by Iran has raised the tensions in West Asia, and this could have implications for the geopolitics of West Asia. Now this topic is very relevant for us because India has major interests in the West Asia region. We have very important relations with Iran, and especially given the Gaza war and all the other related developments that are taking place in West Asia, these events triggered by Iran, it does have major implications for Indian interests as well. So it's very important to understand these issues in complete detail. So let us see what has happened and why Iran has carried out these military strikes. So that is the context of the discussion. In the last few days, Iran has carried out major military strikes in Iraq, Syria, and Pakistan, and this is symptomatic of the larger regional tensions in West Asia. These are not standalone incidents. It's not that overnight Iran decided to launch these military attacks without a reason. There is a broader history behind it, there is a context behind it, and it essentially symbolizes the regional tensions, the broader regional tensions that prevail in West Asia region. In fact, all these developments are in a way connected to the Gaza war that began from October 2023. Ever since Hamas carried out that brutal attack against Israel, Israel has launched a major war in Gaza to wipe out Hamas, and it has led to the targeting of Palestinian civilians as well. So the Gaza war has had deeper implications on West Asia, and this conflict has directly increased Iran's tensions with Israel and the United States. Because as you know, Iran and Israel have been arch enemies for several decades. Iran and US also share deep rivalry against each other. And US and Israel have often aligned with each other to target Iran. And that is what you're seeing today. It is that display of regional tensions that you're witnessing in West Asia. Because as Israel retaliated against Gaza, as Israel launched the war in Gaza to target Hamas and ended up killing almost 24,000 Palestinians. Iran has not sat idle. In fact, since the beginning of the Gaza war, Iran had already warned US and Israel, and as Israel launched the conflict in Gaza, Iran has stepped up its support for various proxy outfits that have targeted Israel in the past. Iran has cultivated several non-state actors, including Hamas and other radical outfits, which Iran has been using as proxies to target Israeli and even American interests. So while the war in Gaza goes on between Israel and Hamas, while this war goes on, Iran has been using other regional proxies to target Israeli and American interests. We have studied how the Houthi rebels or the Houthi rebels have been used to carry out attacks in Red Sea and the Arabian Sea, which has already threatened shipping in the region. The Houthis are Iranian proxies. They have received funds and weapons from Iran. Even the missiles and drones that Houthis have been using to hit commercial ships in Red Sea and Arabian Sea, they are largely of Iranian origin. So US has already retaliated against Houthi locations in Yemen as well. Just last week, US along with UK and few other allies of US have launched major attacks against the Houthi groups and their important bases in Yemen. So while the conflict has reached Yemen, Red Sea and Arabian Sea, Israel has mounted attacks against Hezbollah, which is based out of Lebanon. So we have seen the wider spread of this conflict in the last 3 months. What began as a terror attack by Hamas against Israel invited a brutal retaliation by Israel against the Gaza Strip itself, against Palestinians itself. And this larger destabilization that you're seeing today is a display of the regional rivalries, conflicts that are present between Iran and Israel. So Iran has backed all these proxies. It has not only stepped up support to Hamas with regard to the Gaza war, but it has used proxies like Houthis as well to increase tensions in Red Sea and Arabian Sea and to disrupt commercial shipping. And it has even backed Lebanon-based groups like Hezbollah to target Israel. So while Israel has carried out strikes in Lebanon and even in Syria, where Hezbollah enjoys some support from the Syrian government because Syria is a very close ally of Iran. They both represent the Shia power bloc in West Asia. So Israel has already been carrying out strikes in Syria and Lebanon as well, while US, UK and other allies are carrying out strikes in Yemen, targeting Houthi bases. Now to add to the tensions, recently there were a spate of attacks against Iranian interests as well in Syria, Iran and across the region. These attacks have been attributed to the covert operations of Israel with the backing of the US. As Iran stepped up support for these proxy groups, which were targeting Israeli and American interests, in the last 3 months we have seen retaliatory covert attacks by Israel and US targeting Iranian interests. For example, just last month, there was a major strike which killed a top commander of IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the paramilitary force of Iran, which engages in covert operations, intelligence operations, and even conventional military operations. The IRGC has even been designated as a terrorist group by US, Israel, and few other countries. But however, it's a paramilitary force belonging to the Iranian state. So a top commander of IRGC was assassinated in a bomb attack in Syria near Damascus. Iran blamed this terror attack against Israel. Iran alleged that Israeli intelligence agency Mossad was involved in the attack, which had killed a top IRGC commander. Then recently, just a couple of weeks ago, Iran was commemorating the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, who was the then commander of the Quds Force, which is an elite special force unit of the IRGC. A few years ago in 2020, the US had assassinated Qasem Soleimani, who was a top IRGC commander. He headed the feared Quds Force in Iran. So Qasem Soleimani had been assassinated by a US strike in 2020. So 3 years later, his death was being commemorated in an Iranian city. At this commemoration event, there were serial blasts that took place which killed almost close to 100 people. 90 to 100 people have been killed. And this terror attack which happened inside Iran was claimed by Islamic State Khorasan province, or ISK or ISIS-K, which is a branch of Islamic State operating in Afghanistan. But Iran said this attack is also related to Israeli-American covert war against Iran. Because Iran claims that ISIS-K, or Islamic State Khorasan province, which operates in eastern Afghanistan, it relies on support from training camps, from terror training camps, which are located in Syria and Iraq, particularly in the Kurdish areas, where the Kurd community can be found and where Kurdistan-based groups can be found, which also fight against Turkey and other countries to form their own country called Kurdistan. So Iran's allegation is that in the Kurd areas, US is very influential. US has ties with the Kurd groups, and Iran has alleged that US and Israel have been using Kurdish territory in Iraq and Syria to support terror groups like Islamic State. And this attack, which was claimed by ISIS-K, in a way, Iran has attributed this to US and Israel and their covert operations which are targeting Iran. So this is one side of the story. The other incident which took place recently was that there was another attack against Iran which came from the Pakistani side. In the Balochistan region, in the Sistan-Balochistan region of Iran, which is an extension of Pakistan's Balochistan province, a major attack took place against an Iranian police station where many Iranian police officers and border guard officers were killed by a terror group known as Jaish al-Adl, which is based out of Pakistan. It is based out of the Balochistan province of Pakistan, and it is known to carry out cross-border attacks against Iranian security forces. So this is not happening just in the last few weeks. This is something which has a big history behind it. Jaish al-Adl has been targeting Iran for many years by taking shelter and support inside Pakistan. So now Iran has retaliated against all these elements. It has launched major military strikes against state targets and even non-state targets. It has carried out multiple bombings in the last few days, and it is this retaliation of Iran which has scaled up tensions in West Asia. On the 15th, 16th of January, Iran launched major strikes in Iraq and Syria, saying that it was just retaliating against these state and non-state elements who were targeting Iran. So where did these attacks take place? Let us take a look. Please look at the map here. Iran launched kamikaze drones, essentially suicide drones, and even missiles at one important location in Iraq, which is Erbil. This is a Kurdish area where the Kurd community can be found and Kurdish groups can be found, which wage a war against Turkey as well. As I told you, US does have some involvement with the Kurd groups. And Iran's allegation is that US and even Israel together, they have been using Kurdish territory in Iraq to destabilize Iran and to target Iranian interests. So in Erbil, some important buildings were struck by Iranian drones and missiles, and Iran alleged that these buildings were being used by Israeli intelligence agency Mossad to run its covert operations against Iran. Then in Syria, simultaneous attacks took place in Idlib and near Aleppo. Between Idlib and Aleppo, a few places were hit, which Iran says are the training camps of ISIS-K. Iran has alleged that Islamic State still has a presence here, by the way, near Idlib and Aleppo. This is the last remaining corner where Islamic State has a physical presence. So Iran's allegation is that ISIS-K, which is an Afghanistan terror group, it's a Afghan branch of Islamic State. These Islamic State terrorists, they received training in the training camps present in Idlib. And Iran's allegation is that there is a US-Israeli involvement here as well in supporting ISIS-K to launch these attacks against Iran. Now you might ask, why would ISIS-K target Iran? See, please understand the sectarian divide in West Asia. The sectarian divide within Islam and how it impacts West Asian geopolitics. Iran is a Shia power. It represents the Shia power bloc along with its allies such as Syria, Lebanon and others. Whereas a terror group like ISIS and even its branch, ISIS-K, which operates in Afghanistan, these are Sunni radical outfits. So the Shia-Sunni sectarian divide has a lot to do with these attacks that some terror groups have carried out against Iranian targets and Iranian interests. So Iran has said that we are just retaliating against these state and non-state actors who are threatening Iran. So Iran launched these major missile and drone strikes hitting Erbil in Iraq and Idlib in Syria. Now, why am I marking these locations? These locations can be important for your prelims as they are in news. UPSC can ask map-based questions, very simple, straightforward map-based questions. Especially such important locations in West Asia are very relevant for the exam. UPSC has asked quite a few questions on these lines. So please make a note of these locations where the Iranian strikes took place and understand why Iran has carried out the retaliation. Understand the analysis behind it as well, because it could be relevant for a possible mains question. So the reason why Iran has hit these targets in Iraq and Syria is mainly because Iran is alleging that from these areas, US and Israel are sponsoring non-state actors, essentially terror groups and other non-state actors, to target Iran. All the recent bomb attacks that I mentioned, right, have been attributed to the terror groups operating here and the elements present here, which apparently receive support from Israeli intelligence agency and maybe even from the CIA, which is the intelligence agency of the US. Now the big question is, why has Iran targeted Pakistan? How come Iran has taken the step, which is quite unprecedented, to launch strikes on Pakistani soil? Because after these attacks, within a couple of days, after the Jan 15 strike in Iraq and Syria, within 24 to 48 hours, similar strikes occurred in Pakistan. Across the Iranian border, in Pakistan's Balochistan province, multiple Iranian missiles and drones, they struck multiple targets. And Iran says that these were the training camps of a terror group called Jaish al-Adl. Is that clear? This is a Baloch terror group. Now, please don't confuse this with Baloch nationalist groups, which are targeting Pakistan and fighting against Pakistan for independence. The Baloch nationalist groups are different, whereas Jaish al-Adl, which is a Baloch terror group based out of the Balochistan province in Pakistan, it's a Sunni terror group operating here in the Iran-Pakistan border areas, and allegedly it receives support from Pakistani state and from other countries in the region, especially Saudi Arabia. Because don't forget, if Iran is the leader of the Shia power bloc, then Saudi Arabia has been the leader of the Sunni power bloc. Since decades, since the Iranian Revolution of 1979, following which Iran became a conservative Shia power, since then Iran and Saudi Arabia have shared deep, intense rivalry against each other. They have been targeting each other very frequently. For example, Iran sponsoring Houthis in Yemen is part of this war. The Houthis destabilized the Yemeni government, which was pro-Saudi Arabia, which was part of the Saudi alliance. So Saudi Arabia retaliates against Iran as well by waging such covert wars, by backing such non-state actors. So since many years, there are few Baloch terror groups here which operate across the Pakistan-Iran border. Just like there are Baloch nationalist groups in the Balochistan province of Pakistan which fight for independence, which target Pakistani state. Similarly, there are few Baloch groups operating in Pakistan but targeting Iran. Because the Baloch areas extend into Iran as well. You have the Sistan Baloch province in Iran where there is a movement for independence, and these groups, they target Iran as well, right? This history goes back to at least 2-3 decades back, and there was a radical group called Jundallah which was fighting for the independence of Sistan Balochistan in Iran. So Iran sees this group as a terrorist outfit. So Iran had almost wiped out this group many years ago, and even the leader of Jundullah had been assassinated by Iran. But later many splinter groups and factions developed which took shelter in Pakistan. Is that clear? Pakistan itself, being a Sunni state, had sheltered some of the factions of Jundullah, and one of the major factions is Jaish al-Adl, which calls itself the Army of Justice. It claims to fight for the Baloch people. It claims to liberate the Sistan-Balochistan region in Iran. And Iran's allegation is that this Sunni radical group is supported by regional rivals led by Saudi Arabia. And Pakistan is tolerating it. Pakistan has allowed Jaish al-Adl to operate freely in its territory across the Iranian border, and frequently this group crosses over to Iranian side to carry out cross-border attacks. In the last few years, Jaish al-Adl has carried out major attacks against Iran, and it has killed many Iranian police officers, Iranian civilians, and even the border guarding forces. So for the first time, Iran has escalated this by carrying out a major strike, by firing missiles and drones into Pakistan, deep inside Pakistan. Because the targets that were hit in Pakistan, they were at least 50 to 60 kilometers from the Iranian border. So obviously this is a violation of Pakistan's sovereignty, right? So what is Iran trying to do? What is Iran's intention here? By launching back-to-back strikes in 3 countries, right? In Iraq, in Syria, and Pakistan. In 3 different countries in the region, Iran has launched back-to-back attacks, which really destabilizes the region and increases the tensions. So Iran is clearly targeting US, Israeli, and even Saudi targets in the region. It has hit some state targets as well, because in one of the attacks, Iran has claimed to have destroyed a safe house of Mossad, which is an Israeli state intelligence agency. And parallelly, it is targeting the proxies as well, the non-state actors allegedly cultivated by these countries and which have been targeting Iran. So Iran is basically drawing a red line, that this is the red line and these countries have breached it. So Iran reserves the right to retaliate against them by launching these military strikes against both state and non-state actors. So the strike in Pakistan against Jaish al-Adl is a preemptive strike in self-defense. Iran has said this is an act of self-defense. We are targeting a terror group which is constantly attacking us, and this is an attack on a non-state actor which is being sheltered by a state actor like Pakistan, which is being supported by a state actor like Saudi Arabia. Iran's strikes in Iraq and Syria have the same logic, that Iran is hitting state and non-state targets which have support, state support from Israel, US, and other regional rivals. So this escalates the tensions without a doubt, and Pakistan has already responded to this incident. Even Iraq has condemned the attack that took place. Iraq also has said that this is a breach of our sovereignty. Syria has not responded because Syria is a close ally of Iran. And also, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, right, happens to be a very good friend of Iran, and Bashar al-Assad would be more than happy with the strikes because the Idlib area is the region where rebel and terror groups are operating that target the Syrian government itself as part of the ongoing Syrian civil war. So Syria has not commented about it. It hasn't criticized these attacks. It would welcome these attacks because it helps target various rebel groups and terror groups operating in the Aleppo-Idlib region, which are seen as a threat by the Syrian government. Got it? But Iraq has condemned the attack. It has said that this is a breach of its sovereignty, and Pakistan has taken major offense to these airstrikes, and it has responded against Iran. Pakistan has said that this is a violation of the UN Charter, because under the UN Charter, countries, the UN members, are expected to respect the sovereignty integrity of the other country. So what Iran has done is clearly a violation, a breach of Pakistan's sovereignty and integrity, and Pakistan has said that this is a violation of established international law. Pakistan has even downgraded its diplomatic relations, and it has even asked the Iranian ambassador to stay back in Tehran, to not come back to Pakistan. So clearly, Iran-Pakistan relations have taken a hit. See, Iran-Pakistan relations have been a little complicated in the past as well. They had a decent diplomatic relationship despite the presence of these tensions. Diplomatically, if you look at the diplomatic ties, Iran-Pakistan had a decent relationship. It wasn't that they were arch enemies or something, but at the same time, they weren't the best of friends. Obviously, ideological differences would creep into the relationship, right? Because Pakistan, being a Sunni state, would be aligned with Saudi Arabia and US. That is Pakistani interests in the region. Iran, being a Shia power, would always be on the other side of this regional divide. So Iran-Pakistan have not been the best of friends, but at the same time, they didn't have a tense relationship. They had a decent basic diplomatic relationship. But however, the major tensions in their relationship was related to these terror groups operating across the border. Iran has always alleged that Pakistan has given a safe haven for terror groups like Jaish al-Adl that targets Iran. Pakistan, on the other hand, also has alleged that Iran has sheltered few terror groups, that Iran has given support to some Baloch groups and even the TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is the Pakistan branch of Taliban, which is known to mount cross-border attacks. These Baloch groups and even the TTP, they operate from Afghanistan and even from Iran sometimes, and they cross the border to carry out strikes in Pakistan, targeting the Pakistani state. So these terror groups present here, which without a doubt enjoy some kind of state support from both the sides, they have been a source of friction between Iran and Pakistan. But never have Iran-Pakistan targeted each other through military means because of this issue. It has been a diplomatic issue. Through covert methods, they have been dealing with it. But this is the first time we have seen a major escalation where Iran has carried out a full-fledged military strike deep inside Pakistan. Now, in the middle of this, we need to look at India's reaction. That is very, very interesting. Yesterday, India's Ministry of External Affairs has brought out a public statement on Iran strikes in Pakistan. But what is interesting is that while India has expressed an opinion about Iran's strikes in Pakistan, we have remained silent on the other two strikes that happened in Iraq and Syria. So let us see what is India's position and let us understand what explains this position of India. See, India has agreed with Iran that every country has a right to defend itself against acts of terrorism and against terror groups. India has acknowledged Iran's argument that targeting Jaish al-Adl in Pakistan was a preemptive strike against a terror group and it was an action in self-defense. India has acknowledged this and India has said every country has the right to act against terrorism. Every country has the right to defend itself. So hence Iran has received full support from India, complete support publicly from India with regard to these strikes that Iran carried out against Pakistan. Now what explains this position? Because on the other hand, we haven't said anything about Iran's strikes that happened one day before in Iraq and Syria. There we haven't made similar statements. So here please understand the complexity involved in India's ties with Iran and Pakistan. You need to look at this from the prism of India-Pakistan relations, how India itself is a victim of terrorism, which is state-sponsored from Pakistan. Right? India itself has carried out such preemptive strikes. The surgical strikes after Uri attacks, the Balkot airstrikes after Pulwama attacks. So India has carried out such preemptive strikes against terror camps present in Pakistan, and we have said that every country has a right to defend itself against terrorism. So now if Iran is acting against a known terror group, Jaish al-Adl, which is hosted in Pakistan, obviously India can't change its position. Right? And this again showcases to the global community that Pakistan is a state sponsor of terrorism. Pakistan is a country which hosts multiple terror groups that threaten the neighboring countries. So by supporting Iran, in a way, India is putting the spotlight on Pakistan, that Pakistan is a state sponsor of terror. And also, this serves another objective of India, which is to strengthen our ties with Iran. Because since 2018, India's ties with Iran has been very badly affected. See, Iran is a strategic partner for India. At one point, Iran was a top oil and gas supplier to India. We had major investments in the hydrocarbon sector in Iran. India has taken up strategic projects in Iran, including the Chabahar port project. India-Iran are part of the INSTC corridor with Russia, the International North-South Transport Corridor. India was looking to get involved in many other key projects, including the Chabahar railway line, to create an alternate route to connect with Afghanistan and Central Asia. We had even signed a trilateral agreement involving India, Iran, and the then civilian government of Afghanistan to create a trading route via the Chabahar port built by India. Afghan goods were being transported to India and Indian goods were being transported to Afghanistan. Our ambition was to further extend these corridors to reach Central Asia as well, so that we can tap Central Asian resources and improve the trade between India and Central Asia. So Iran was crucial for all these plans. Iran is also crucial for India to counter terrorism that emanates from Pakistan and Afghanistan. As Iran is also affected by some of the terror groups operating here, India and Iran have a history of cooperating with regard to counter-terrorism. Our intelligence agencies have often worked together. We have collaborated in the defense, security and intelligence domain to jointly counter terrorism as well. So such a close friend of India, right, was lost in 2018 when India suspended oil trade and downgraded the relations with Iran because of American pressure. Under Donald Trump, the US brought back stringent economic sanctions against Iran in the name of targeting Iran's nuclear program. The tensions had been previously resolved under the Obama administration by signing the Iran nuclear deal, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The JCPOA had brought some stability between US and Iran over its alleged nuclear program. US had lifted the sanctions and Iran had shut down its nuclear weapons program. But under Donald Trump, the US quit the JCPOA. The Iran nuclear deal was suspended by the US by alleging that Iran was still secretly developing nuclear weapons. And the Trump administration brought back stringent sanctions against Iran to cripple the Iranian economy and forced India and others to follow the sanctions. Usually, India does not follow unilateral sanctions imposed by one country against another. Because we follow the principle of strategic autonomy, we have an independent foreign policy. We only follow sanctions imposed by UN or FATF, but we don't follow unilateral sanctions. But in this case, the Modi government was pressurized by the Trump administration to cut off ties with Iran and to zero out oil imports. So post 2018, India completely shut down oil imports, and this affected Iran's economy very badly. And Iran has held a grudge against India. Iran dropped India from the Chabahar railway project. It gave greater space for China under the Belt and Road Initiative. India-Iran relations took a hit, and Iran even started interfering in India's internal matters related to Kashmir and the protests related to Citizenship Amendment Act, all of which were being promoted by Pakistan at the global platforms. Pakistan was highlighting Kashmir issue and the CAA protests at UN and Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and Iran would back Pakistan on these issues in order to express its displeasure against India. So a complete fracture had developed between India-Iran ties. So now this is an opportunity to repair that relationship, and in fact efforts are being made in the last few years. In fact, very interestingly, just one day before these attacks started, on the 14th of Jan, India's foreign minister was in Iran. Dr. Jaishankar was in Tehran. He met with Iranian president, Iranian foreign minister, and attempts are being made to repair the relationship. So just one day after the visit of the foreign minister, these attacks took place, and India has stood with Iran, at least with regard to the attacks against Pakistan. So in a way, India has hit two birds with one stone. On one hand, we have put spotlight on Pakistan again, showing to the world that Pakistan is hosting terror groups, it's a state sponsor of terrorism. And by backing Iran, we are trying to bridge the relationship, trying to address the cracks that had developed in the relationship since 2018. So it's in this context that we need to look at these developments. But of course, India is deeply worried about what's happening across West Asia. The Gaza war and the events it has triggered, from Syria to Lebanon to Red Sea to Arabian Sea, and now across Iran, Iraq as well. Right? These events will destabilize the region further. The terror groups might retaliate, and the rivals of Iran, US, Israel, even Saudi Arabia and others, might escalate the conflict going on through overt and covert methods. And this is bad news for India because we have major interests in the region. From our oil and energy supplies to the well-being of the Indian community, right? We have major stakes in West Asia. So all these developments represent a dangerous trend as far as stability in West Asia is concerned. So this is what we understand from this important development. And with this, I would like to conclude my discussion on the first topic. Now let's move on to the next article. On page number 10, the Hindu carries an article referring to a recent demand which has come from Manipur to delist some of the scheduled tribes. A demand has come up from an organization in Manipur called the National Secretary of the Republican Party of India, who represents the majority community in Manipur, the Meiteis, has submitted a memorandum, a demand to the government of India that few scheduled hill tribes in Manipur have to be delisted, meaning they have to be removed from the scheduled tribe category. This demand is for delisting the Kuki-Zomi community from the ST status. Now, this demand has led the government of India to ask the state government, the state of Manipur, whether Kuki-Zomi tribes and some of the groups, the subgroups within the tribe have to be delisted, should they be removed from the ST list. So this demand that has come from this outfit, right, this organization that represents the Meiteis, it has raised serious concerns. And since the government is taking up this concern and the center has asked the opinion of the state government, right, it does raise serious questions because Manipur has suffered from deep-rooted ethnic divisions since decades. In fact, last year's deadly violence that gripped Manipur, it's not a one-off event. There is a deep history behind it, which goes all the way back to 1950s, 1960s, and even to colonial India. I hope you know that during the British era, Manipur was a princely state, right? The Manipuri kingdom was ruled by the Meitei rulers, the Meiteis, who reside in the Imphal Valley. They have been the dominant community, right? So Meiteis, there are Meitei Hindus, Meitei Muslims as well. They are the most influential group in Manipur, right, since the days of the Manipur kingdom. So obviously the Meitei rulers, they were not completely willing to join the Indian Union in 1947. Post-independence, they wanted to retain their autonomy, which was given to them by the British. The British had given at least a sense of autonomy to the Manipur kingdom. They didn't fully annex it, right? They had given a degree of autonomy to the Meitei rulers. So post-1947, there was some hesitance amongst the Meitei rulers to join the Indian Union. So they felt Manipur's merger with India was a forceful merger. And apart from this, the Meiteis felt that they were being discriminated by the Indian state in the 1950s, 1960s. Because some of the hill tribes, some of the hill dwelling communities, they were recognized as scheduled tribes by the government of India. For example, the Nagas residing in the hills of Manipur, the Kukis and the Zomi community, which also resides in the hill areas, and even the Mizos of Mizoram in the neighboring state of Mizoram. All these hill dwelling tribes, they were recognized and listed under the ST list, the scheduled tribe list. Now please understand the geography of Manipur, geography and demography of Manipur. If you look at the physical geography of Manipur, Manipur is like a stadium, a cricket or football stadium, where you have a center playing field and then the spectator stands rising around the stadium. Manipur's geography is something similar to that. You have the Imphal Valley at the center, right, somewhere in the middle of the state, and around Manipur, around the Imphal Valley, you have the hills rising around it. So many experts often compare Manipur with a stadium. Its geography is like that, right? The Imphal Valley, which is the low-lying area, the plain area, is dominated by the Meiteis. The Meiteis are dominant in their numbers. They are the majority community. They have been influential politically, economically as well because of the princely connection. But the other hill-dwelling tribes in some of the hill areas, be it the Nagas, the Kuki-Zomi community, and even Mizos, right? They were at a disadvantage because these hill areas were very remote, the communities were backward, their culture, their language was under threat. So given all these factors and based on recommendations of certain important commissions in 1950s and 1960s, the government of India recognized these hill tribes as scheduled tribes. So the Nagas of Manipur got ST status. The Kuki-Zomi community, which is connected with the Zo community of Myanmar across the border. The Kukis of Manipur have connections with the Zo-Zomi community in Myanmar. Even Mizos of Mizoram are connected with the Chins of Myanmar. So such deep-rooted ethnic tribal connections exist across the international border as well. So these hill-dwelling communities here, these ethnic groups were given the ST status, which meant that tribal land would be protected. Now Mizos are related only to Mizoram. In the case of Manipur, the Meiteis had an issue primarily with Nagas and Kuki-Zomi community because the Meiteis could not venture into the hill areas and purchase the land in the hill areas which belong to the tribal communities, that is Nagas and Kuki-Zomis. This tribal land was now protected because of the ST status. So Meiteis felt that they were being discriminated. Whereas Nagas and Kukis had no such restriction. They could come down to Imphal Valley and even purchase land because Meiteis were not given ST status and their land enjoyed no protection. Apart from that, ST status brings a lot of other privileges and benefits, from government reservation in education, in government jobs, to special subsidies and other privileges. They were all provided to Nagas and Kuki-Zomis, which were the hill tribes of Manipur, whereas this led to resentment building up amongst the Meiteis. So this led to ethnic violence, ethnic clashes between the Meiteis, the Nagas and Kuki-Zomis, which triggered insurgency in Manipur in the 1960s. The Nagas already had started their insurgent movement in neighboring Nagaland, that is then Assam, right? So Nagas of Manipur would get support from the armed groups of Naga insurgent groups. Kuki-Zomi community had started a movement for Kuki land. They had their own armed organizations leading a separatist movement here. So Meiteis who felt threatened had started their own insurgent groups, such as UNLF, with which recently India has struck a peace deal, the PLA, People's Liberation Army, right? These were the major Meitei insurgent outfits which engaged in inter-tribal, inter-ethnic violence, and they were even leading a separatist movement against India. India had tackled all these insurgencies over the decades. Scale of violence had gone down. Manipur by and large had become stable. But this was disturbed last year. In 2023, what happened? The Manipur High Court stepped in with regard to the Meitei demand for ST status. Meiteis have been fighting for ST status from a long time. Manipur High Court intervened and ordered the state government to work on providing ST status to Meiteis as soon as possible. So this order by the High Court and the inclination of the government to favor the Meiteis was seen as a discriminatory policy by the Kukis and the Zomis, and this is what led to large-scale protests which turned violent last year. Meiteis allege that Kuki-Zomis, not only their land and identity is protected because of the ST status, but this has enabled illegal migration as well, according to Meiteis from Myanmar. The related Zo-Zomi groups have crossed over the border illegally from Myanmar into India and they have taken shelter in the hill areas of Manipur. So Meiteis see this as a threat. They see the influx of illegal migration, the influx of illegal migrants as a threat. But Kuki-Zomi community denies this. Reports say that very few members have crossed over from Myanmar. They have come as refugees because of the ongoing civil war and crisis in Myanmar. Otherwise, they say that there is no problem of illegal migration. They say that this is the imagination of the Meiteis. So as the High Court intervened and pushed for ST status, and the government was also showing that inclination to favor the Meiteis, it triggered widespread protests by the hill tribes and that led to brutal clashes between both the sides. The violent armed groups of Meiteis and Kuki-Zomis clashed with each other, leading to targeted violence. Brutal killings have taken place. There has been large-scale violence in Manipur. And now the issue is coming back again. Things have not stabilized. Because a Meitei outfit, the Republican Party of India, it's a Meitei group based out of Manipur. This group has raised a demand. It has raised a demand with the government of India that some communities in Myanmar don't, Manipur, some communities in Manipur, they don't deserve the ST status. So it has pushed for delisting these tribes. This Meitei group wants the Kuki-Zomi groups to be delisted from the ST list. Now see, this ST list was prepared based on recommendations of two very important commissions. The first Backward Classes Commission of 1955. This commission identified the criteria based on which ST groups can be recognized. Then the Lokur Commission of 1965 provided important recommendations for recognizing ST groups in the country. It's on the basis of these recommendations of the first Backward Classes Commission of 1955 and Lokur Commission of 1965. It's based on these recommendations that hill tribes like Mizos, Nagas, Kuki, Zomi, they were recognized as the hill tribes and given the constitutional protection. But now the Meitei demand to revisit this is raising renewed concerns. Because see, as you know, Meiteis are pushing for their own ST status, their own inclusion in the ST list. Now that itself had triggered clashes previously, last year. When Meitei attempt to push for ST status was given a further push by the High Court, that itself led to large-scale violence and it triggered the ethnic divisions in the state. Now, Meitei groups are making another attempt parallelly. Apart from pushing for their own inclusion in the ST list, they are pushing for the exclusion of some groups of Kuki-Zomi community. They are saying that there are subgroups within Kuki-Zomi community which do not deserve ST status, which do not meet the criteria of being recognized as a scheduled tribe. So they have submitted this memorandum to the government of India to delist some of the subgroups of Kuki-Zomi community. Government of India has entertained this petition and it has raised this with the state government of Manipur. It has asked the state government to consider this. So we need to see what happens. But definitely the issue could spark the tensions again. And that's exactly what the editorial is pointing out. The article is pointing out that if the government pursues this without addressing the ethnic divisions already present, this could further create more divisions between the groups, leading to further large-scale violence. Is that clear? In fact, recently, the Buria Commission, which submitted a report a couple of decades ago, in 2002-2004, had raised concern about how there are large ethnic groups, umbrella groups in Northeast, which have been listed as ST communities. And these large umbrella groups have many subgroups and clans. Like for example, if you take Nagas, right? The term Naga is a reference for a umbrella group, a larger ethnic group, and there are many subclans and subgroups of Nagas. Similarly, in Kuki-Zomi community and other tribal groups present here, there are many subgroups and clans. The first Backward Classes Commission and Lokur Commission, they had preferred the listing of the subgroups and the clans. Instead of just broadly mentioning and listing the entire ethnic group, which could lead to confusion and intergroup rivalries, Lokur Commission had recommended that it is better to specifically identify the subgroups and clans as well, so that it will satisfy the local demands and it will not lead to unnecessary tensions and rivalries between different groups. But the Buria Commission report had said that since many subgroups have been recognized and many subclans have been listed as ST tribes, this could lead to similar demands from other larger ethnic groups which do not have the ST status. It had called for a re-examination of the classification of the ST tribes in Northeast India. So now the demand from the Meitei group, which is being entertained by the government of India, brings back this question that how do we identify ST tribes in the country, right? The ones which are listed, they're all based on the criteria laid down by the First Backward Classes Commission and the Local Commission. Now, is there a need to revisit that? Is there a need to update that? Because this could have wider implications for listing and denotifying scheduled tribes in the country, which could affect many other tribal groups as well. So this raises the social issues as well. It's a question of social justice to various tribal communities, and it brings back the security concerns in Manipur, as it could widen the ethnic divisions in Manipur. Because the government is revisiting the issue and it's considering the proposal to denotify some of the scheduled tribes in Manipur just because Meiteis are demanding it. So this might be seen as unfair by the other minority tribes which already are listed, and they might further escalate the violence, which could lead to the vicious cycle of violence returning back to Manipur. Is that clear? Now let's take up the next major article from page number 10. It deals with China-Taiwan relations and the tensions between China and Taiwan. Let's quickly go through this because this is a very important topic given some recent developments. Just last week, Taiwan held its democratic elections, and the DPP, the Democratic Progressive Party, headed by new leader Lai Ching-te, has won the elections. Essentially, the Democratic Progressive Party, which is known for its position against China, which is known for its open position against China, has won the elections again. This is the third consecutive victory for the DPP. So this has the potential to further increase tensions between China and Taiwan. Now, following these election results, following the return of DPP back to power, China not only criticized the elections, it not only raised the demand for reunifying Taiwan back into China, but a small Pacific island country called Nauru has revoked its recognition of Taiwan following the elections, and it has recognized only China as the legitimate authority and as the only government that can rule over mainland China and as well as Taiwan. Now see, this is nothing new. China has often used many small countries, influenced them with its money power, with its military power, and convinced them to withdraw their recognition of Taiwan. Because see, very few countries officially recognize Taiwan and have diplomatic ties with Taiwan. A few years ago, I think around 22 countries had recognized Taiwan. Only 22 countries. Because every other country had accepted the one China principle, the one China policy, meaning there is only one Chinese state. That is the PRC, the People's Republic of China, ruled by the Communist Party of China, which governs mainland China. So CPC has always been striving to reunify Taiwan and bring it under its control. That is under the PRC. So this issue goes all the way back to the 1930s. Let me give you the brief background, and then we'll discuss the current tensions and why these tensions are coming back. See, back in 1920s, 1930s, then China, including Taiwan and mainland China, was ruled by the Republic of China, the ROC, which was headed by the KMT, the Kuomintang party. The Kuomintang was the party in power which formed the Republic of China, or the ROC, that governed today's mainland China and as well as Taiwan. But this government was accused of massive corruption, neglect of people's welfare. There were major social issues and divides in China, especially amongst farmers, peasants, workers. There was a lot of resentment that had built up amongst the poor classes against the Chinese state. The masses felt that the Kuomintang party, the Republic of China, did not care about their welfare. They felt that China had been exploited by outside powers because of the ineffectiveness of the then Chinese government. The masses felt that Chinese pride, Chinese identity had been hurt by colonial powers and other imperial powers like Japan. Frequently, China had been exploited by Britain, France, and especially by Japan. So the people of China, the masses, held a lot of resentment against the Chinese state, and they also saw that it was a corrupt government, there was no welfare, and this gave rise to communist ideology in the country, and we saw the establishment of the Communist Party of China in early 1920s. By 1921-22, the CPC was established. Then, under the leadership of Mao Zedong, or Mao Zedong, a call was given for a Maoist war against the ROC. Mao Zedong, who emerged as the leader of the Communist Party, he gave a call for the masses. He said, don't demand for your welfare, don't fight for your rights. Take up an armed rebellion. He said, take up arms against the state. Fight a guerrilla war to throw the state out, to throw the government out. It is this extremist movement, left-wing extremist movement, which we call as Maoism, also known as Naxalism in India. Maoist philosophy, Maoist doctrine was based on overthrowing the state and capturing state power. So this Maoist war triggered a civil war in China in 1930s, 1940s. As the Second World War was raging, China was going through a major civil war where the Communist Party on one side was leading the Maoist rebellion against the Kuomintang, which formed the Republic of China. This was the conflict. Eventually, the communists won the war. The Maoists, with the support of the masses, they overthrew the state. They overthrew Republic of China. The KMT was thrown out of power and they were cornered into the small island of Taiwan. Now, please look at this map here. See, this is mainland China that I am referring to. Back then, mainland China was much smaller because it did not include Tibet and even parts of Xinjiang. These were annexed, occupied by China later. After PRC was established, right? It was under the Communist Party that China forcefully annexed Tibet and even parts of Xinjiang and expanded mainland China's territory. But back in 1930s, 40s, China was much smaller in size, that is mainland China. So Republic of China, ruled by the KMT, the Kuomintang party, was thrown out during the Civil War. The Kuomintangs were cornered into Taiwan, into this small island of Taiwan. So Republic of China shifted to Taiwan and the KMT started governing Taiwan, claiming to be the legitimate government of not just Taiwan but the whole of China. But here the Maoists who won the war, right? The CPC captured full power and established the PRC. By 1948-1949, People's Republic of China was formed by the communists and PRC said that this is the legitimate Chinese government. PRC did not recognize Taiwan's sovereignty. It rejected KMT's claims and said that there is only one China. Because back then, the UN permanent membership was with KMT, was with Republic of China. Most countries had diplomatic ties with Republic of China. So now the question was which Chinese state to recognize, which Chinese government to recognize. Should it be PRC or ROC? Countries like India, which had empathized with the Chinese masses and their suffering, and given the common history of colonial exploitation of both India and China, India extended support to the Communist Party. We recognized the PRC as soon as it was established. As soon as Maoists won the civil war, India gave recognition to the PRC, the People's Republic of China, and most other countries in the world, they came around to accept the one China principle. Meaning there is only one China, that is PRC, ruled by the Communist Party. That is the official Chinese state. So Taiwan is not a country. It doesn't have UN membership. It's not recognized as a country by majority of the nations in the world. Hardly around 20 odd countries had given recognition to it. And it was also an authoritarian state until 1990s. The KMT, the Kuomintangs, they ruled Taiwan from 1950s to 1990s. It was also an authoritarian state. Even Republic of China was authoritarian. But in 1990s, Taiwan made a democratic transition. Is that clear? This is very important. Please remember this. Taiwan was also an autocracy ruled by the Kuomintang party, the KMT. But Republic of China made a transition in the 90s towards democracy. democracy was established and the DPP emerged as the most popular democratic party. Now KMT, which previously had fought against China, now has become a pro-China status quoist party. The KMT has backed China's interests to reunify Taiwan with mainland China. It has rejected the American interference which has increased in Taiwan. Because the US has maintained an ambiguous policy over Taiwan. Even though US officially doesn't recognize Taiwan as a country, it has recognized PRC as the legitimate Chinese state and recognized the Communist Party as a legitimate government. It still maintains ties with Taiwan and it supplies weapons as well. The US military is constantly deployed here in the Taiwan Strait, which constantly increases military tensions between China and Taiwan. So as China opposed the democratic transition in the 90s, since then, the PRC has stepped up military tensions here. It has frequently fired missiles, sent naval ships and even aircraft to breach Taiwan's airspace and its territorial boundaries. So in the last 3 decades, constant tensions have prevailed here with the rise of democracy and with the rising popularity of the DPP. The current generation of Taiwanese, even they are used to democratic traditions, they reject any authoritarian rule. The younger population in Taiwan, they completely favor democracy. So this is something that China does not appreciate, obviously. Because this is a challenge to the Communist Party itself. If China is claiming Taiwan, and if Taiwanese people are rejecting the Communist Party and single party rule, it's a direct challenge to the very foundation of the Chinese state. So increased US interference, Western interference has aggravated the problems, and China is working with other countries to reduce the recognition that's available for Taiwan. I told you, right, around 20 odd countries gave recognition to Taiwan. But China is slowly influencing them one by one. It is using its money power, it's using its diplomatic influence and military power to convince one country after the other. Now, Nauru has become the latest country. It's again a small Pacific island nation, right? Obviously, such small countries would be attracted by China's funds and investments. So, China is influencing them to withdraw recognition for Taiwan and give recognition to the PRC, to the Communist Party. So, this remains the standing issue over here. The American interference continues. American support for democracy, America's support for DPP continues because DPP is pro-US. It has built very close defense relations with the US and it takes direct weapon supplies from the US. Whereas KMT has achieved a consensus. When Taiwan transitioned into a democracy, right, in 1992, the KMT, the Kuomintang party, achieved a consensus with the Communist Party of China to maintain status quo, to maintain things as it is, and someday ensure that Taiwan reunifies with mainland China. This has been KMT's position, the opposition party in Taiwan. So CPC right now is in good terms with Kuomintang. It's quite ironic because at one point they were in conflict. The CPC and the Kuomintang, they were the ones who led the civil war on opposite sides. But now the Kuomintangs have aligned more or less with the CPC itself, and DPP is the only one still leading democracy and fighting for democracy in Taiwan. So as the DPP is pro-US and pro-US sentiments are increasing and pro-democracy sentiments are increasing, China is trying to pressurize Taiwan and it's using economic methods, military methods to put that pressure on Taiwan. It's also using diplomatic methods to ensure that most countries withdraw the recognition, right? China is pushing for one China policy to be recognized, and that's what Nauru has done. Understood? So please pay attention to these developments because this is of relevance for India. India has very good economic cultural ties with Taiwan, but we do not have official diplomatic ties with Taiwan because India also has accepted one China principle. Just like most other countries in the world, we have also accepted that there is only one Chinese state, which is the PRC, ruled by the Communist Party. So officially, we don't have diplomatic ties with Taiwan. All right, but we do have very strong economic ties and cultural ties, and especially in the electronic industry, semiconductor industry, Taiwan is a global leader and perfectly aligns with India's vision. Right? We have signed many new agreements as well. India is looking to send a large workforce to Taiwan. Taiwan is facing a critical shortage of labor, and India is ready to provide skilled labor to Taiwan. So there are very strong economic cultural ties between India and Taiwan, even though we don't have diplomatic ties. So the China-Taiwan tensions does have implications for India, because India also has border disputes with China. Don't forget that China has been extremely aggressive against India with regard to the border dispute. This is something Taiwan also suffers from. China displays unnecessary military aggression across the Taiwanese Strait. So there are talks of possible India-Taiwan defense relations as well. Maybe, right? So it's in this regard that the topic becomes very relevant, and the recent elections in Taiwan can be a turning point. So this completes my detailed discussion of all the major articles today. Let's take a quick look at the prelim section. First, we have an image on the front page which depicts the exotic Jallikattu event in Tamil Nadu. Jallikattu is a bull taming sport which is widely popular in Tamil Nadu, and it is associated with the festival of Pongal, the harvest festival, which is celebrated in January, right? So in this bull taming sport, a wild bull is allowed to run free, where men try to latch onto it. They try to grab it by its horns. They try to mount the bull as well. So this is a very traditional sport of Tamil Nadu, and there is a lot of history, culture and relevance behind it. So this sport is seen as violent by some critics. There are animal welfare activists who have criticized this sport, saying that it causes unnecessary harm to the animal. The Animal Welfare Board of India had also said that this is a violation of Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. The Prevention of Cruelty to Animals or Against Animals Act of 1960. It provides for animal welfare in the country, right? So Animal Welfare Board of India and animal welfare activists had argued that this is a violation of animal welfare rights. So they had called for abolition of this practice. It became a very controversial question, a political question as well, because you need to understand that bull taming is also integral to the rural agrarian economy. Such bull taming sports, it's not just about culture and the religious significance, there is an economic significance attached with it. Because the local farmers, the cattle farmers, right, they rear the best breed of cattle, which provides that stability to the rural agrarian industry. It strengthens the cattle industry. There is a similar bull taming sport in Karnataka as well. Can you find out the name of this bull taming sport in Karnataka? Even this sport in Karnataka was brought under the same question, that whether animal rights are being violated, should it be abolished? So what the state governments did was, state government of Tamil Nadu and even Karnataka, they amended the Prevention of Cruelty Against Animals Act. And they gave protection to Jallikattu, and Karnataka also has given legal protection to its sporting event. So there is a constitutional question raised here as well, that whether these sports, which have a religious significance, right, should it be seen as part of Article 29, which guarantees cultural rights to minorities, right? So that question also has been raised in the Supreme Court, which looked into all these issues. It upheld the validity of the laws, the amendments passed by Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, which provided legal protection to these bull taming sport events. So Supreme Court upheld the amendments done to Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, and thus Jallikattu and the other sport in Karnataka, they are legal, right? Despite all the controversy surrounding it. But still the issue persists, and in today's paper itself, on page number 4, there is a related article that 4 people lost their lives because of Jallikattu in Tamil Nadu. Because this sport is violent, it can lead to injuries and people could get injured and killed as well. So it remains a controversial topic, but you can't ignore its religious, cultural significance. At the same time, you need to acknowledge the human rights, the animal welfare angle that is brought into the equation, right? The matter is settled as of now because the state governments have passed these amendments that gives legal protection, and Supreme Court has upheld the validity of these amendments as well. Got it? Next, on page number 12, there's an article referring to a very important place in Manipur called Moreh. The article says that there has been fresh violence where 2 police personnel have been killed in Moreh, And the state government has asked central government for air assets, that is for helicopters, to help the security forces deployed here to deal with the unstable security situation. Now let me tell you why Moreh is important. It's extremely important for your prelims. Moreh is a border town in Manipur located over here along the Manipur-Myanmar border. It's a major commercial town. It's a trading center, it's a commercial town. And this is where the IMT highway passes through. The trilateral highway project that India is pursuing with Myanmar and Thailand as part of Look East Act East policy passes through Moreh and connects with Tamu on the other side in Myanmar and reaches Mandalay, Yangon and Mesot in Thailand. The India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway. It's a key connectivity project as part of our Look East Act East policy. And it essentially connects this border town, this commercial trading town in Manipur, that is Moreh, across the border with Tamu in Myanmar and with other major centers in Myanmar like Mandalay and Yangon. From here, this highway would connect with Mesot in Thailand. So that is why Moreh has a lot of significance. It has a lot of trading significance as well, right? And even with regard to security, this is where a lot of illegal crossings have happened because of the security situation in Myanmar. A lot of refugees and illegal migrants have crossed over into Manipur near the Moreh crossing point. So Manipur government has asked for more support, especially aerial support in the form of helicopters to assist the Assam Rifles, which is deployed here in a border guarding role. There are other central forces deployed as well to contain the security situation, which has worsened in the last year. So that's why Moreh becomes very important. Next, on page 14, we have an article referring to CERT-In. Article says that last year, a major security threat, a cybersecurity threat was exposed by an ethical hacker and by a cybersecurity firm. But these security vulnerabilities were not plugged, were not fixed by CERT-In for almost 11 months. Last year, an incident came up where an ethical hacker, along with few cybersecurity firms, they raised concerns about personal data of celebrities and well-known individuals which was exposed. Aadhaar details, PAN card details had been exposed online as a result of a cyber fraud, right? And this had raised cybersecurity concerns. It was flagged almost 11 months ago. But these security risks were not addressed by CERT-In. There has been almost a 1-year delay. And finally, CERT-In has plugged these security gaps. So you should understand what is CERT-In. What does it do? CERT-In stands for Computer Emergency Response Team India. It's the nodal cybersecurity agency of the country. It was established in 2004 under the Information Technology Act of 2000 and it functions under Ministry of Electronics and IT. Its primary role is to defend the Indian cyberspace, to monitor the cyberspace and ensure that 24/7 any cyber incidents are dealt with in real time. It works with the other counterparts around the world to keep track of emerging malwares, the new viruses, ransomwares and worms which are coming up, and it issues advisories, alerts to all the stakeholders in the country, to government entities, private companies, and even to the common public. CERT-In communicates the cyber threats and the cyber risks and what cybersecurity measures have to be adopted to protect the integrity of the Indian cyberspace. It also has a responsibility to counter and repel any cyber attacks against Indian cyberspace. So it's a civilian agency that is primarily responsible. It's the nodal agency for defending the Indian cyberspace against cyber attacks and cyber crimes. Next, coming to the last article for today, on page 2 of the Science and Technology section, which you can find in the online edition of the Hindu, there is an article referring to your gut health. Because see, in our gut, that is in our digestive tract, in our gastrointestinal tract, there is a microbiome present where you have trillions and trillions of microorganisms. Essentially, these are the good microorganisms, right? They play a critical role in digestion, in absorption of nutrients, in excretion, etc. A study has pointed out that your gut health, essentially the diversity of your microbiome present in the gut, determines your overall health, including your heart health. The studies have clearly established that there are many factors that influence the composition of the microbiome in our gut. The trillions of microorganisms present, right? Their variety, their composition, their functioning is dependent on many factors, including environmental factors, whether you're drinking clean water, right? Whether you have access to clean food. It's dependent on the diseases as well, the infections you have suffered from. It's dependent on the food you're consuming, the food, the diet that you take, right? This determines the overall composition of your gut microbiome. But new studies have thrown more light to show that even genetic factors have a role to play. See, there was a global project called Human Microbiome Project that was launched in 2012. Before that, in 2007, in the US, a Human Microbiome Project was launched, which was scaled up to a global project involving international institutions and researchers to study gut health and gut microbiome. This study was based on genome sequencing. By breaking down the DNA sequences, and by studying the genome sequences, researchers established that it's not just environmental factors, the infections you have suffered from, and your diet, which determines your gut microbiome, but even genetic factors play a role. This determines how food is digested in every individual, how the food is broken down, how the nutrients are absorbed, right? And even other gastrointestinal disorders, from gastritis to ulcers to even cancers, they all are connected to your gut microbiome, including your heart health, your deficiencies, your overall immunity, thus establishing the critical role of the gut microbiome. That is why in many cultures, there is a well-balanced diet, a well-thought-out diet to positively influence the gut microbiome, right? That's why it's important to keep control over the environmental factors as well, right? Sanitation, hygiene, having access to clean food, clean water, and the diseases, the infections you have suffered from plays a role that could alter the composition of your gut health. For example, there were reports that COVID-19, that is SARS coronavirus 2, has the ability to alter your gut microbiome. So many pathogens have that ability to adversely or positively affect your gut microbiome. The diet, the food you're consuming, of course, plays the most biggest role. And even your genetic factors, what you inherit, right? Your hereditary factors, even they play a critical role. So please remember these different factors that influence gut microbiome and read more about Human Microbiome Project. Please find out a couple of important points about this international research project and mention that in the comments below. So today I've given you two exercises. One is the bull taming sport in Karnataka, what is it called? And a couple of points about the Human Microbiome Project. Now please take up the mains practice questions. I expect you to write answers to these questions. It's all based on what we have studied today. And you can post the answers in the answer writing portal, for which link is provided in the description box below. So on this note, I would like to complete today's discussion. I hope you guys have liked it. Do let me know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That is it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.